Let's continue with the broadcast. We're just interrogating some of the top stories covered in today's dailies. With me, Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard and the Daily Nation. Those are some of the dailies we're interrogating. And I'm joined by Michael Agwanda, political analyst, and Stephen Mwakesi, public policy analyst. And most of our discussions have been encompassed on the political parties bill as we finalize, gentlemen. I don't know if there are any other issues that are arising. Do you have any issues with the timelines? They settled for 4 months to the date of the general election. Is this fine?
I personally don't think it's enough time to be able to quickly assess and be able to be sure whether you want to enter into a coalition agreement with someone and the parameters with which you're getting into that agreement with. And I know this is what Nixon Korir was attempting with, trying to reduce the timeline from 4 months to 90 days, so that at least at the door of the election you can actually sit with someone and then agree, well, this is how it will probably look at. Why? It gives you enough time to assess the strength of the would-be partner in the coalition. However, I find that the timeline is doable as it stands right now. I think also for the electorate, to enable the electorate know what your position is ab initio, because there's no point of taking a person round in circles only to come and dump them at the foot of OKA, you know, or at the foot of Raila, or at the foot of Ruto, because you are unclear at some point. So I think it also encourages some semblance of discipline and decision making by parties, and I'm all for it. What I would really like to naturally call on the UDA brigade and the people allied to William Ruto is that I think this is it's a fantastic bill. It's one thing for William Ruto to go and tell people that these people are looking to change the law because nobody can trust them. Who says anyone can trust you, you know, going into this particular election? Let us not trust men when we're doing the thing called politics. Let us try and trust agreements, because these are more solid. There cannot be a gentleman's agreements with politics. We've seen how it has failed us. It has led us into chaos and into war. So it's important, let's codify this into law. I think the most important thing that this bill has been able to show, and I believe all the UDA people are for this particular bill, it's just that what we've been able to be entertained with for Kenyans is the show of might, the ability to know that William Ruto is a factor in this election, whether or not he has government or whether he's in government or he's not in government. He's been able to show that even at the legislature, he is a man to reckon with. And I think that has been a good display. It is going to be translated into the Senate. I still feel that the bill will still pass. There might be some need for harmonization at some point, but I still believe amongst most MPs, they find that the bill to be comfortable. It allows them to even make a certain decision. A lot of these MPs, I'm very sure, Jesse, will go into new parties. You can see Wamalo has already crafted his vehicle for that election to fight in the Bungoma zones of Trans Nzoia and Bungoma County. So it means a lot of these people will be making decisions in new entities, and they would like those new entities to have the ability to enter into vehicles like Azimio, to enter into partnerships with UDA, and enter into partnerships with OKA, and actually have their space and also get money at the end of it all. So personally, I am for this bill. Let it be supported. Let it pass. It's good what we have seen. Aden Duale led a good fight within the Bunge the other day. He still looks like a gallant soldier. But I think for the first time, he's seen that there's a clear difference between him being leader of majority and leading the other brigade of Tanga Tanga. So, but it was good TV. It was good entertainment for a lot of Kenyans to see that there can be politics, a clear dichotomy between some certain ideals and others. For the first time, we also saw what the Kenyan version of what is called a filibuster, whereby the Tanga went ahead and said, look, we are going to frustrate this law by pushing as many amendments as can possibly be devised on the earth. And we saw that that strategy does not work. It can work for some time, but in the end, you have to yield. So it was a good political teaching for us all, and a good display of democracy.
Well, apart from the exchange of blows.
And that was a bit untidy. That was very untidy and unhonorable.
Agwanda, your final take on the political parties bill?
For the parties that were waiting and hoping, vultures, that once not OKA, but ODM goes into, presidential race, and UDA on the other hand. Those are the only two horses we have today. And that election is done, and then once election is done, they have few members of parliament here and there within their back, and then there's a runoff because the numbers don't no justifiable winner for that reason. So there's a presidential runoff, and then they can now coerce one presidential aspirant and say, I have few members of parliament already, and if I give you the votes, then I want part of the government. Can we trade on this? Lo and behold, they're time-barred, and so they've got to make a decision now whether they're running for president or not. And they've got to make a decision now whether they're joining a coalition or not. And the consequences are out, and they're written out there on the wall. If they don't join, they're going to go it alone. And if they go it alone, the question is, will they be able to amount the fight that is required to even near the presidency position? Will they be able to have enough members of parliament for them even to be recognized when the debates are going on? Will they be a project of another presidential aspirant or not? What we saw in Kakamega last week was a little bit funny. You have Malala here running around and saying, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi must be the President of the Republic of Kenya. We're going to support him. And then you go to a function, and who do you call? Another party leader sitting next to you. And the guy you've been drumming for all these years is somewhere else. And let me tell you, because he's not been reprimanded as a result of what he did, the writing is on the wall. People can see
but
that
he
perhaps
mentioned this freedom of association.
I agree. You can say anything you want, Jesse. But people are seeing that it's what you don't say sometimes means a lot than what you say. It's a good bill, as my brother said. I think we need to support it. I think it's going to help the small party. I think it's going to refocus the way we look at politics in this country, where a one-man show, if you're a strong person with money, no matter where it comes from, whether it's stolen or not, you can run a party and you can be a president in this country. That has to stop. And these parties now must be run professionally. This coalition now must be run professionally, and they must show the face of Kenya.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Let's see if this bill brings sanity, finally.
Just one last thing I'd like to just give to ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi. I don't find it quite just a happenstance that he has a few days to declaring his presidential bid, and just on the eve of his declaration of his presidential bid, his party looks like to be in total turmoil. Savula is pulling in one direction, Malala is going on another direction, every Osotsi is saying all manner of things. I would like to urge one final thing on this thing, that now that we have tried to rectify the law, created core party discipline amongst its members, and it's now clear that you either espouse the ideals of the party or you ship out. It's very important that Mudavadi, over the next few days, before declaring that he's the presidential candidate for ANC, that he actually puts his house in order, because as it stands right now, he looks as the most disorganized party leader after Wetangula. At least Wetangula kicked out all the funny people and they went and formed another party.
Can you be nice?
But for Mudavadi, it will have rebellion taking rife within his party. It's no wonder that William Ruto goes everywhere and says, Mudavadi, it's about time you joined me, because clearly your house is in shambles. Okay. So it's important that Musalia Mudavadi gets a grip on his party and begins to run it like a ship that's going to actually win him the election come 2022.
And it's interesting, just yesterday I had the deputy party leader ANC here, and he categorically mentioned what Ayub Savula said. Yes, I'm in Azimio, but I'm still in ANC. So he's still a member of ANC, but he's supporting those technicalities.
And so are all the members of UDA. They're still in Jubilee. So really, you cannot say
but let reality be said, it's really hard to expulge these errant members from the party. I mean, some parties have started disciplinary proceedings, and they're still ongoing till now.
But you better start it.
Yeah.
So that people know how serious you are.
Exactly. And again, also it calls to a question whether you are actually a leader. You know, the way this law was created, it wasn't meant to that you rule by fiat or by the fact that by law you are supposed to be putting people to order. As a leader, you should be able to call people to order without necessarily using any instruments of law. And I think this is something that is putting a lot of question on Musalia Mudavadi. It did put a lot of question on Wetangula until he was able to show that he's a serious guy. You cannot mess with Ford Kenya where he's concerned. So we don't hear these kind of things happening with Gideon Moi and his party for Kanu. So it is very important that if you
don't hear it
running
with ODM.
It doesn't happen with ODM. And the president has been very categorical. He's running the country and not playing politics. So you can now see why Jubilee is in chaos. But as it concerns Musalia Mudavadi, it is about time that he proves to Kenyans that his ship that was once a rearing and the most vibrant horse within OKA can actually be able to stand the ground.
And speaking of Mudavadi, just recently he mentioned he's been on the media more for what he hasn't said than what he has actually said. Crossing over to Kalonzo Musyoka, how can you woo someone if there's no communication between you? They were sort of disparaging the speculation around One Kenya Alliance disintegrating and joining either UDA or the Azimio la Umoja movement. Well, what's your take on that?
Just where there is a smoke, there is fire. And when you come out to the media and say anything you want to say in the interest of your coalition or in the interest of your members and officials, you can say anything. But when people go to the boardroom and they can say totally a different story, what we've seen in this country is where people address the media and somebody's asked, you go and say this to the media. But when they are together, they're having a discussion. It cannot be a coincidence that the deputy president goes to Mumias, where none other than the senator of Kakamega, Malala, is hosting his tournament. And then we are also aware that Musalia Mudavadi was also supposed to come there, only for some people to make some serious phone call and say, if you do this, you're done. And so is Wetangula. The question my brother is prosecuting here is very, very simple. You better be a man of your own. Run your party. Don't look like a weakling, like a bride that everybody is thinking that they haven't really got a man yet. You know, let's try to fish this bride, because this bride has not decided whether he's going UDA or he's going to Azimio or he's going by himself and saying, I'm going to be single in this case. When people see that weakness, they make the steps to approach you. When you don't stand clearly and say, this is where we are headed, this is our presidential aspirant, all these other collusion will come for you. And that is why OKA is vulnerable. So whatever they say in the media.
Okay. So there's no value from where you sit in terms of One Kenya Alliance, because in terms of being wooed, you have to have some sort of value. What you're arguing right now is because they're undecided, and that's why they're an easy target for
Correct. Okay. By now, they should have had their presidential aspirant. By now. They should have said,
waiting till February,
this is our presidential aspirant. It is 2022.
Okay.
We are about 6 months to the election. You should have your presidential aspirant. When you're waiting for too long, these other people are talking with other people. That's exactly what happened to NASA. When Honorable Raila Molodinga, when these other guys were still mark timing, he was already having a discussion with his brother Ruto, President Uhuru Kenyatta. That can happen again, because Uhuru is a friend to Musalia Mudavadi. Uhuru is a friend to a number of these OKA guys. It is possible that he can endear them to his side and say, I need your support here. Can you come and sit with us? The fundamental question that people are asking out there is, what stakes are they having by not deciding to go either left or right? Are they bargaining, and at what cost are they bargaining on? Because what is on the wall is they will definitely be joining one or the other coalition, and if they go it alone, it could be one or 2 people amongst them. The rest are going to join other coalition.
Okay, as you also respond, let's talk about the new entrance, Justin Muturi. Well, according to Agwana, he's speculating the length of this marriage, quote unquote. And are they taking such individuals for a ride? If you're bringing in, Mount Kenya Unity Forum, you're bringing in the Democratic Party presidential candidate, Justin Muturi, it definitely shows there's some seriousness within your coalition, perhaps.
It shows.
Yeah.
Now, let me say this as I answer your question, and just going back to what I started with Musalia Mudavadi. There's a big problem that's happening with some of these legacy politicians that they're not getting quite clearly in terms of how they can approach the presidency going forward. And I'm going to call them out. Now, look at the Eastern region that has been traditionally Kalonzo Musyoka's bedroom. Suddenly, there are a whole number of governors putting out their bids to run for governors, but they are not putting Wiper as the candidate, the party of choice, whenever they are saying that they are mounting their bids for governorship, for MPship and everything else. Everybody is steering clear of saying categorically, I am a Wiper candidate going into this particular election. That should worry someone like him. Now, look at the other OKA candidates like Kanu. Kanu has not yet also been able to show that we are mounting serious candidates who are going to run into this particular election going into 2022. People are still pussyfooting on whether they can run on Kanu or not. Now, the lack of decision making at the very top is seriously impeding the ability of these parties to actually gain traction and have a foothold in some of the bases from which they emanate from. And it's going to be a very difficult position for them. Now, instead, OKA decides that the better strategy that we're going to do is continue mingling at the top. And then they decide now, let's go and get another fella called Justin Muturi. Now, after evaluating all the other candidates from Mount Kenya Unity Forum, it seemed like Justin Muturi is the only one who probably has his game together. One, he has a legacy party that has been naturally been connected with the Central Kenya, that's the Democratic Party of Kenya. Number two, he has also been able to engage what is the leadership of Mount Kenya in terms of having the elders, okay, and engaging with them and even going through the rights and even becoming a Kikuyu Council of Elder member. And he's also been doing that at the Eastern region where he comes from, Embu and everywhere else. So he looks like the more credible of the bunch, and he has a lot and commands still a lot of respect within Bunge or with all those members that are seated in there. So Justin Muturi then becomes somebody that you can really want to associate with. But will Justin Muturi be able to take a lower position as opposed to all these people if all their home zones are actually grinding to a halt? They are not even able to hold their grassroots. This is the question. And unless they're able to mount their ship together and make sure that their grassroots, the bases which support them, are strong enough, you might end up having OKA choosing Justin Muturi as the only presidential candidate, because as of now, I still think he's the stronger of the whole bunch.
Surely.
Let me explain this.
Explain it.
Moses Wetangula, in his own admission, and I can guarantee you, there is no other counties that Moses Wetangula is interested in except Bungoma and Trans Nzoia. Beyond that, Moses Wetangula is just looking for MCAs. He's not bothered with anything else. And with that, he's seated at the table. Explain to me what is the value of Cyrus Jirongo, who is appearing in all OKA meetings, and where is his base that he's bringing to this particular table. Cyrus Jirongo is from where? Kakamega. Has he been able to bring anybody from Kakamega to say that OKA is worth considering, apart from Malala himself? So clearly it tells you that within OKA, very few people can actually stand on their own 2 feet and be able to become men and women of substance to go and marshal a fight against William Ruto or Raila Odinga. Now, the only person that's why I'm insisting, Justin Muturi might actually be the actual ringer in this game, because he actually can be able to wake up one day and say, I am, and everybody knows how close that man is with one Uhuru Kenyatta. They have come from very far. Those are bosom buddies, and he is now the third in command in the country. If, for example, Uhuru Kenyatta was to wake up and say, I am casting my lot with one Justin Muturi, where he decides to go is where all of you should follow. then he becomes the most favorable candidate of the lot. So in my opinion, and I really want to push this as a position, because none of them will want to pay me for this free advice, is that if I was Kalonzo Musyoka, I would spend more time in my eastern zone, galvanizing my vote, so that Charity Ngilu cannot be seen in any podium in Azimio attempting to look like the face of the Kamba people. No.
Okay.
He becomes the only person who can be able to say that I am marshalling significant support for my people within any national dialogue that's going forward. Same case appears to everyone. Now, there is another thing I want to throw in the mix. What if all along the person who has been playing everyone within OKA is one Kalonzo Musyoka? Because I've been seeing his laissez-faire attitude in terms of how he's approaching this OKA alliance and how he's approaching everything else. And it doesn't, I suspect, and I might be wrong, again, I might be very wrong, speculation, yeah, that this might actually be the deputy presidential candidate for Raila Odinga. Because the way he is casual about everything can only mean one thing. Either he's assured that he's in the Azimio bus with Raila Odinga, yeah, because Raila Odinga has gone to make it very clear. The chairman of my presidential candidature is a Kikuyu called Nderitu Murithi. He has also made it very clear his brother wants him to become the president, who is Uhuru Kenyatta. And he has also made it very clear that when it comes to matters of the mountain, he has the entire cabal that has been supporting Uhuru Kenyatta at his beck and call, including the media giant that is SK Macharia. So in my view, the way I'm seeing is it might be that Kalonzo might be actually the person leading this
okay, but let me ask you this. Apart from the speculation, what value does the National Assembly Speaker bring to the table? And I'll forward this to you, Agwanda, as well. Does he have a political base? You know, because he's arguing that despite their political bases being eroded, they have some. Does the Speaker have a solid base behind him?
The Speaker of the National Assembly came into this very late. And the reason why he came into this, he suddenly realized that indeed there was no presidential aspirant from Central Province. And he seized that opportunity and decided to say, I want to run for president. Every community will support one of their own if he's going for the highest office in this country. Okay. That is why in Western, in Coast, in Nyanza, they have stood with Honorable Raila Odinga because he's never looked anywhere else other than the presidency. And that has been the hope. The Central Kenya, I've had two presidents. It is not far from the truth that if given an opportunity, they will also want to have another president who is from Central Kenya. But it will beat logic that when people are going for a race in 2022, that none of their sons stood for presidency. This guy knows that I may not be able to amount to be the president of the Republic of Kenya in 2022. But how about 2027? I will be the man everybody will be talking about. So let me put my foot forward and start this journey now. Yeah. Now, for him to join with this coalition, OKA coalition, what he's trying to say, I'm coming in here as an equal partner. I'm an equal partner with Salim Davadi. I'm an equal partner with Kalonzo Musyoka. I'm an equal partner, perhaps even with Wetangula, simply because the reason why I say he's an equal partner is because he's never had a party and he's never fronted anybody that has been elected that is known in the Republic of Kenya. For that reason, some of these party members that are already in OKA, you know, some of the principals in OKA, are men and women that have run parties, have members of parliament in parliament, have members of our county assembly, and for that reason, they hold some clout and so hold some leadership responsibility, both in the house and outside the house. And for that reason, he comes in there with his position as the Speaker of the National Assembly and says, I am coming in here and I want to fight for this space. I want to fight for this space that if it's possible, I'm going to run for president. This gentleman brought in a huge point that we need to discuss. Now, when he comes in there, which position is he going to play? Is he going to play a second fiddle or a first fiddle? In other words, OKA is getting confused every single day because previously there were just about 4. Now there's a 5th guy that has come in And once he comes in, he wants to run for president. What's going to happen with these other guys that have been thinking that they're the ones pulling the shot for that reason? Now, if they refuse, what will happen in OKA is this guy will say, if you refuse that I don't run for president, then I'm getting back to my party and I'm running for president. Okay. What will happen to OKA? Then Wiper says, well, in that case, I think I'm going to join another coalition. And then William, Amani National Congress leader will say, I'm going it alone. To that point, there will be no OKA. And if there is OKA, there will be confusion in terms of leadership. They refuse to do it at the beginning. They are getting into more trouble. And time is running out for them. That is why it's becoming shaky. The leadership of OKA must be shown now. It must be seen to be working in the interest of the country, in the interest of the electorates, in the interest of members of those political parties. They must know who is their flag bearer. If not, their electorates, their followers are going to follow the other presidential aspirants. A number of them are going to go to UDA, and so many of them will go to, Umoja la Azimio. And I can tell you, by the time they're just realizing that things are so bad, they'll be having nobody to vote for them.
Okay, well, according to them, the timelines by IBC allow them to hold on to that secret till mid-February. Let's hope the center holds, even as we anticipate.
Just let me help Justin before you close.
Okay.
Justin cannot be said to be somebody who does not hold a constituency. Justin Muturi, remember, was the National Organizing Secretary of KANU while they were together with Uhuru Kenyatta. And while he was in Bunge during that term, he was also the opposition chief whip. He is not a small man. He is a man who has traversed this country, has a lot of networks under the old KANU regime. He became chairman of Center for Multi-Party Democracy. He is a person who has serious networks within this particular country. Now, taking over Democratic Party, the chairman of Kibaki, is not also a small feat. Already it should tell you that there are networks within DP that he can actually angle and hold on to within Central Kenya that cannot be wished away. And also, during the TNA campaign, when the president was coming in 2013, Justin Muturi played a very critical role in marshalling up votes for Uhuru Kenyatta within the Mount Kenya region. So he cannot be taken for granted that that he's walking into OKA with no serious constituency.
So he's pulling his weight.
He has his weight, and everybody knows it. The only thing that we are going to see is that will this OKA, now this is the other question, is OKA a special purpose vehicle being utilized for purposes of delivering a deputy president? Or is it a special purpose vehicle which is actually being used to deliver a presidency? This is the question. Because with the number of people being put in that particular kraal, we do not know what is the agenda. But if it is actually meant to produce a presidential candidate, the only one who's now looking very serious, and never, ever, ever, ever think you can put the Mount Kenya region to a box and say that they can never run for president. They have proved to us that they are capable of running for president, one president after the other. So I wouldn't be surprised if this time they say, we are not going to take a Kikuyu, but we'll give you another fella from Mount Kenya called Justin Muturi. I pray for the sake of our democracy, we do not go that route, but it is a possibility. Do not think or wish away the possibility of a Justin Muturi presidency.
Or a One Kenya Alliance presidency. As we continue, that's a coalition for the willing. We have to talk about other developments as well. The deputy president, let's talk about his game plan. And as you mentioned, he's definitely changed tact. He's more about wooing some coalition partners, hopefully in the likes of Musalia Mudavadi and Ford Kenya Party leader Moses Wetangula. What exactly is the game plan here? And in case this doesn't go forth, One Kenya Alliance stays strong, where does this leave the deputy president?
I think the thing about William Ruto, and from what I'm suspecting he's doing with his tour of Western Kenya and his overtures to Moses Wetangula and Musalia Mudavadi, is to just give the opportunity for them to say yes or no, but have a case to make to the electorate that I tried. So they might not agree with me, but if you people agree with me, why don't we form a government together? And I think he's putting this overture so that he can be on record that he attempted to engage these particular fellas. Because in his own assessment, and I'm sure he's looking at polls that are showing him that he has more numbers. Look, the last poll gave who? Mudavadi and Wetangula what? Even I don't think Wetangula featured in that thing. But it ended up showing that Mudavadi and Kalonzo had 1%. Now, the moment somebody like William Ruto looks at that thing and says, Allah, these guys are at 1%, even the nation now knows that they are not capable of marshalling a serious presidential campaign.
But we have to poke the credibility of these polls.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah.
But allow, then he says, before they even make a case for why they are not at 1%, let me make overtures to them to join the winning side. Now, mathematically adding a 1% to your equation does not mean that you're adding much. And that's why you find like Raila Odinga is not even bothered asking them to come in, because it seems Raila Odinga is taking Angela Ambido's polls very seriously, that what can a 1% add to my campaign? However, I still believe that it is quite important that going forward, William Ruto shows to the nation that he was not taking a hardline position for the sake of it, that I've tried to make overtures to your leaders. And in the event that they feel that they do not want to be a part of this particular journey, then it is all right. It is something very quite interesting to see that UDA and its Secretary General have gone ahead to make very clear that we wrote letters to one ANC, and we wrote letters to one Ford Kenya asking them to come and join us in a coalition. That's a huge admission by William Ruto's party. And it's actually a huge admission of change of tact. But I know they are doing this so that at the end of the day, they can guilt trip these leaders so that they can have the direct access to directly approach the electorate to join them in their cause. So for me, knowing William Ruto hii ni ujanja, na anafanya very categorically, making sure that for the next 3 days it is clear he has been trying to ask Mudavadi to join him. Mudavadi has refused. Okay. Wetangula has refused. Wacha sami niendelee.
Siasa iendelee. Anyway, well, what's your assessment of that?
The deputy president is definitely a politician that you want to reckon with in this country. And his style of campaign is unbelievably very energetic and very theatrical at the same time. But most importantly, is one eloquent guy that can actually sell an ant-hill for a mountain, and it will be sold in the market. He at one time said he does not need anybody he does not need to work with anybody or coalition. At that particular time, I think Honorable Raila Odinga said, we can work with anybody and our doors are open. But he said, no, I don't need you guys. You guys go wherever you want to go to. And so it just prompted a little bit, when these men and women perhaps thought they could either join or either comes. And so it showed them a little bit of Madarao for that reason. And now turning around and saying that I need you, in itself is an admission that I have actually realized that I was not as popular as I thought I was. I've actually realized as the deputy president that I do not have the numbers that I thought I had alone. I've suddenly realized that even Mount Kenya, where I thought I'd done a very good job for years, for about 4 years, those numbers don't seem to add up. I probably need to look elsewhere. And the easiest way to look is not Nyanza, is perhaps not Coast, is perhaps not Eastern, is perhaps not Central so much, because of the dynamics of tribe, dynamics of parties, dynamics of communities. And for that reason, I think there's a caplacia that really don't seem to be grounded on one single presidential aspirant, and that is Western. And I think the deputy president has probably made more overture to Western Kenya than Musalia Mudavadi himself for votes. Okay. Because he goes there, every opportunity he gets is right there. He's looking for votes. Perhaps Musalia Mudavadi goes home and he kulas machoma and enjoys him. That's his home. But the guy is going there and holding rally. Give it to him. He's tried all he can to get votes from Western. But Central Province is becoming a tricky place because Honorable Raila Odinga seems to be aging. Now with the entrance of Speaker Muturi into the OKA, it's even making things worse for him. We know that, We know that a number of these, central Kenya leaders are supporting Azimio La Umoja for that reason. Some of them are just not announced, but they are in it because that's where the president is looking at supporting at the general election for that reason. And so I think the deputy president is really looking into himself and is coming to a realization that I need people, that I cannot make this alone. And I can tell you what, that is the truth. When we realize that indeed it was not just about the letters, but when Salim Davadi now also supported his views in Parliament on this bill that has just been passed, then, Jesse, what I was telling you about, where you can address the media, but at the back room there, you are actually discussing how you can work together. I see a possibility of the deputy president getting some blocks from OKA. Unfortunately, that's going to happen. But what will happen is the electorate will say, you lied to us. You were supposed to go for presidency. We didn't know that we were supposed to be sold to the deputy president. That will be a reckoning time. And as a result, perhaps they may not get a lot of votes.
Okay.
The numbers again.
All right.
The question that everybody is asking is the deputy president says, I will win this any day. I will win this any day. All I'm asking is from where? Western Province, we are seeing a lot of these presidential aspirants having their footholds there. We are seeing Governor Oparanya supporting Honorable Raila Odinga. We are seeing Atuoli really supporting Azimio La Umoja. And we are seeing a number of members of parliament now even moving from Amani to not ODM but Azimio La Umoja. Yeah. You can see that it's not a place that the deputy president can be guaranteed even 50%. He can't even get 30% out of it. Okay? Now, what about Rift Valley? We are also seeing some governors in Rift Valley holding on to their parties. You don't know which coalition they're going to go to. And if they go to those coalitions, most likely you might have some few people in Rift Valley. Okay. And remember, there are a number of people in Rift Valley that are from central Kenya and also from Nyanza, Kisii area, as well as Luoland, that are voting in Rift Valley. Okay. And so for that reason, you can also not say, I'll get 100%, unless you make sure that everybody that lives in Rift Valley do not vote. Right. And that will not happen. Okay. And so I see a deputy president that is now struggling to add up to those numbers that has been promising his electorate that seem to be dwindling every single day.
Well, he doesn't seem to be slowing him down. He's definitely crisscrossing the country still. But away from the deputy president, let's talk about Raila Odinga. The latest development being, he's just named some members to his campaign team, of course led by Governor Mureithi and Ms. Mayo as the secretary of the campaign team. What say you? Because others might argue this is rather early for Raila Odinga. 2017, it was roughly 3 months to the general election. That's when we were seeing the campaign team being formed, and NASA played quite an instrumental part. Musalia Mudavadi was heading part of the team, if I can recall, and this time around he's walked away from politicians mostly, despite the Governor Mureithi heading that particular campaign team. What's your take on that?
Jesse, for me, it's very clear that, like I said earlier, the challenge that Raila Odinga has is to, for the first time in his life, sell his candidature minus the force and effect of ODM. He did it with CORD, you can say that earlier. He did it with NASA. But this is the first time where he's saying ODM is not the priority here. Neither is any of the chairmans that are going to support my bid. I do not give even one care about any of those parties. I just want to run my bid. And my bid is going to be supported on this platform, and I'm going to run. Now, for that purpose, I need you to understand the people who will make up this particular framework that I'm attempting to do. And this is why you're seeing these names. We are seeing ODM luminaries not featuring in this particular arrangement. That for the first time, we're not seeing what we thought Junet will be there. Junet will be left to run around with his ODM and make noise here and there. But the people who will be running his presidential campaign are quite distinct. They will be knowledgeable to the public, and they will be the persons who will be able to say what he does all across the country. And for me, I think this is a brilliant move. It's a stroke of genius, and it's important for a move like this to be executed fairly early on to the election. Otherwise, it might crumble in the end. Remember, there are certain zones, even traditional ODM zones, that when you mention the name ODM, it completely just turns them off. And here is about to climb a mountain. He is about to go to areas whereby people have traditionally said ODM has been quite a selfish party. Things are run from Orange House. Nothing ever caters for the interests of the people who are on the ground here. Only Baba is good, the rest of his people are bad. All those kind of things can only be swallowed if Baba does not run on the basis of his former party. Okay. And I believe this is what he's trying to recalibrate. I think it's an interesting move. It's very important and instructive to note that on the day that Nderitu Muriithi is being mentioned that he is going to be the chair of the board that will deliver this presidency, he goes ahead to say, I'm running for governor on a PNU ticket. So he's making it very clear that in Mount Kenya, we have our parties that are going to continue doing our business to make sure that our candidatures are sound. However, when it comes to the presidency, it is Raila Odinga, and we're taking care of his interests without necessarily being a part of this thing for them. Now, I think finally, to just also put a cap on it, it is a strategy that Raila has borrowed also very heavily from William Ruto. You can also tell from William Ruto that the persons that he has decided to front as luminaries within UDA have not necessarily been people coming from Kalenjin land or traditional zones whereby you would expect URP foot soldiers to come from, or say UDA foot soldiers to come from. So it is a strategy of trying to nationalize the presidential bid, with the idea that what you're looking at is the ultimate prize, which is the presidency, minus the hang-ups of the baggage that come with the individual parties that will probably make up the Azimio la Umoja conglomerate of parties, or coalition for that matter. So in my view, I think it's a fantastic move. It's a brilliant move. He's one who's known to always put a number of academics, a number of strategic thinkers in his campaign teams. If elections were going to be won by the people who are seated in campaign teams, I think Raila has won all the elections, because he always has the smartest people in the room. However, whether it will now translate to an actual win is where the question comes in, and that will heavily depend on the team being able to create buy-in from the electorate, that for the first time, Raila is no longer an ODM candidate. Raila is no longer this guy from Luo Nyanza. Raila is the person for Kenya. Exactly. If they can be able to sell that to Kenyans, maybe.
Well, we'll know when the rubber hits the road, but their work is cut out for them.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Definitely. And since we're talking about part of Mount Kenya, let's talk about that, even as you add your voice to the campaign team. And we had, during the Azimio la Umoja movement launch, some leaders mentioning that, yes, we did a lot of work in terms of, spoiling your name within the central Kenya region. They have an uphill task to sort of undo what they had done earlier on. In terms of rebranding the national campaign team, the Azimio la Umoja movement, walking away from the ODM colors, is this a goal in sight?
I don't think it's a goal in sight. I really, and I will, gently disagree with him in terms of looking at ODM and saying that perhaps ODM will not be acceptable in some other places in this country. These parties have actually created Honorable Raila Odinga and vice versa. In other words, it's taken a small thing and it's built it to be a huge thing. That when people see Honorable Raila Odinga, they see the party that is behind him. That is how important those parties are. Those parties have come up with members of parliament that have, participated really, really well in parliament and have swung votes out left or right for that reason. And so, as a result of the party, so is Raila who he is today. And that is why he's always run on a platform. The only thing that is done well in those platforms is made those small parties be a national party. In other words, Raila is a national leader. Whatever he touches, he looks at it from a national perspective. People will not like all parties. There are people who don't like Jubilee. There are people who didn't like TNU. There are people who don't like, Wiper. But there are also people who will die with those parties. That is how we are. That's how our culture look like. Now, the launch of Azimio, La Umoja, was huge. But I believe in what Honorable Raila Odinga has done. He has pulled out the people who ran Orange House from his presidential race. And what he has done is I'm putting up a team of people that are known in this country that are having impeccable background and are having impeccable resources as well as network to run my campaign. I do not want ODM and Orange House to influence this because I want this to be a voice of Uzimio, Umoja or Uzimio. To that extent, I hugely support him because there are people that perhaps have been with the party for a very long time, but they are more of a baggage than a success to his bid for presidency. Okay. When you have a new team, then there is hope and glamour for those that want to support him, that perhaps were rubbed from the wrong side and saying that, you know what, I don't want to go to that place because so-and-so had hurt me in one or the other. Okay. But let me say this, Jesse. Okay. I believe that he has also borrowed this from President Uhuru Kenyatta. When President Uhuru Kenyatta was running TNA and they were running with Jubilee, they got leaders that were not necessarily from their community. Sakaja was there, and so is Onyango Lo, Aluo, and Aluya for that reason. And they led the party, and they were very, very successful. Look at the history of the late President Moi. All his party leaders were coming from somewhere else. They were not coming from his community for that reason. They were coming, and mostly they were coming from Nyanza. And there was a reason for that. Because he needed soldiers that will also influence the community they come from. But I want to say this. When I look at Ruto Muruthi, and I look at the lady that has been appointed as the CEO of the presidential campaign, I am still not convinced that we don't need young people. We need young people because the young people resonate with the young people today. The young leaders resonate with the young people today. And I believe this is probably the reason why there's an organization that is called YOTHA. That is Young Handshake Leaders Alliance. What YOTHA is doing is they're bringing the young leaders or young people from universities to people that have just left school to young people that are working, and they're forming a whole group that is called YOTHA within ODM fraternity and saying, we want to reach out to the youths out there so that they can also support Baba for the presidential in 2022. ODM, TNA and Jubilee did it very well. We want to see more young people being involved in this campaign. And if they do that, the presidency of Honorable Raila Odinga will not be in question, but it will be in great success with numbers that we cannot even think of. These people will think that the Honorable Raila Odinga will not be able to amount to about 51.something%. They are defeated when young people join this team, especially in organizations like YOTHA and other organizations that influences the young people. I see a 65 to 70% win for Honorable Raila Odinga.
Well, you're turning into an opinion poll right now. But anyway, that's on the lighter side. But that story has definitely been covered extensively in today's dailies. I'd like us to conclude with matters other than politics.
No, but
if possible.
But we have to say one last thing for politics.
Okay, go ahead.
One, first of all, it is Raila Odinga's birthday today. So we wish the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga happy birthday. But two, there is something very interesting happening in Nairobi today, and I think you guys might be able to cover it. Agnes Kagure is launching her bid for governorship of Nairobi. And you can see from the Daily Nation she's put up a huge spread. There's something that I wanted us to just quickly, I wanted to point out in politics that it's shaping up. I think in Nairobi we need to find a way to fix it. Because it seems there's a lot of confusion. And the last opinion poll, and I'm sorry we're bringing up the opinion poll again, it showed just so Sakaja as the only person. It literally showed like he was the only one running at 30% and everyone else at 2% and whatnot. The question is, how is Azimio going to really put up a serious candidate to stand in this particular election? Now,
We've heard of Richard Ngatia being
and you know, they've been saying there's somebody called Richard Ngatia, Agnes Kagure is in the offing, Sir Johnson Sakaja is there. I think it's about time that when we are going into this election, for Nairobi to be at this particular point and we still do not have a clear matrix of how it's going to happen, it's quite a very daunting reality for Kenyans to appreciate. And I think it's about time that people got their act together. My call would be, in as much as possible, the handshake and Azimio and everyone else becomes very clear on who they would want to prefer to run Nairobi. Nairobi is integral to the running of this particular country. We want to see an end to this NMS experiment. We want the county to go back to the people so that it can be run well.
But to be able to do this, is going back quite soon.
It should go back, and the faster the better. But for us to be able to ensure that we can be able to have a city that is actually well run, it's important that we begin to now narrowly focus on who exactly is the best CEO to run this particular county. Nani Kananwa says she's running. Kagure is making a bid today, but I think Sakaja Kagure bid looks like a very nice one. Even Wanyonya said is running. So I think before you close, I needed to just point out that Nairobi is very important. We take care of it.
No problem. Since we're speaking about important cities, let's cross over to Mombasa. And the president was there just recently with the Chinese Foreign Affairs Minister, just taking a look at the ongoing progress at the Kipevu oil terminal. 40 billion Kenya shillings synced into that particular project, and according to the president, he'll definitely have good tidings for Kenya, bearing in mind the current 50-year-old terminal will be supplemented in one way or the other, since this will be the biggest on the continent once completed. What do you say about the trade deals between China and Kenya? Because they came under sharp speculation. The president definitely defended them and said Kenya will continue pursuing more partnerships and trade deals with the country in the east.
This is a project that is supposed to actually be completed within the next 2 or 3 months for that reason. And so there's very little we can say about this. We also know that there's a overpass that is on Uhuru Highway, Mombasa Road, that is supposed to be completed within the next few months as well. We can say very little about it. As to whether this country need to get into any trade agreement with Beijing now, I think will be ill-advised in my view, because there is a new government that is coming in 2022. Beijing has had issues with this country. They've equally done well, but the issues of corruption that we've seen with SGR are things we cannot put under the carpet. The issues of escalation of the prices and cost of the projects that they're undertaking are things we cannot put under the carpet. The issues of horse trading to a point where they're bringing laborers here, even to a driver position in this country, I think we cannot put under the carpet. And most importantly, the contractual agreement on these projects that are not made public is in itself fishy and should not be acceptable in a democratic society where those individuals are going to benefit from those projects are the ones paying for it. I strongly believe that this trade agreement must now stop so that when the new government comes in, they can evaluate what has been done by Beijing and then say, is it necessary for us to go forward with the East, or is it possible for us to go west? Most importantly, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that it's a grant. We have not seen an instrument that shows that it's a grant. Now, if it's a grant, that means it's been given to us for free. Well, when you say we are saving 2 billion annually, I don't know whether it's annually or per month as a result of building this, the question is, over what time or period? These are not very, very, very clear things. I strongly believe that it's time that this government now ceases to engage the current government, any foreign agency and contracts until a new government comes in place, because we are in serious debt that perhaps the new government might say, we are not paying this loan, and that will put us into a serious loggerhead with the international community. So this investment has to stop. If it was me to say, perhaps I would go with a refinery in Mombasa, so that our oil here has a prospect of being refined. We can reduce the cost of refinery in this country than having no refinery and putting over 51 billion. In fact, one newspaper is saying 51 billion, another newspaper is saying 40 billion. So we even don't know how much it is.
Okay. Well, at least this one has good tidings. The LPG prices are set to go down, but the contractual agreement and the secrecy around it is usually a cause of concern, yeah?
Just allow me to jump in on this, and very quickly, to just state that I've served in government, and I can tell you, as a person who's worked with Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, and knowing how tedious it is to try and get projects to come to fruition, working with Chinese has not been a bad idea at all. I know there's a headline that was saying that we have over 1 trillion in contracts that have been issued to Chinese companies and a very small club of Chinese companies, but they do deliver. They deliver on time. They deliver within some budget at most times, and it's something that we need to really try and encourage. I want to say that for Uhuru Kenyatta, he had to make a sharp decision because of the timelines that he had and the kind of partners that he needed to see some of these projects executed. The best people on the table were the Chinese. Everyone else always brings up very complicated issues on how they're going to be financed, and they were actually asking Kenya to pay out of exchequer, and we don't have that kind of money at this particular moment. However, I've seen that the Kenyan government has engaged the Chinese government for a 51 billion grant. The 40 billion that we're spending right now is something that was already earmarked and tendered for by Kenya Ports Authority with CCC. But 51 billion in new grant has been given to the Kenyan government for purposes of different projects. And I appreciate this kind of grants coming into Kenya from China. The idea that I remember that was once mooted when we were doing the plan for the Big Four agenda was that can we at least encourage China to move some of the primary industries that they have there, move them from China and have them operational in Kenya. The idea has always been that we push the Chinese to become foreign direct investors in Kenya by to stop putting up small factories for small things like rubber for I don't know what. Instead of doing it in China, come do it here in Kenya. Okay. So that they become investors like the way Kenyans have been traditionally been used to seeing foreign investors, the British, the Germans, and everyone else. Okay. Okay. And I think this is the push that Uhuru Kenyatta has been trying to do. Right. And with this kind of a new modality, I foresee Kenya moving to a new league of becoming a manufacturing country, and I foresee great things for this country. So for me, the Kenya-China trade ties that have been established by Uhuru Kenyatta are one of the most fantastic things that this president has done in this administration, and it should continue. However, what I agree with my brother here, what I want to agree with my brother here is that it is about time that as part of these agreements and these trade deals that we do, we make sure that these deals are open and public. It is something that Kenyans want to see. Definitely. The moment Kenyans can know that this tender was like this, it was paid for like this, and on these days when we are finishing to pay, it will give Kenyans a lot of confidence. Okay. Give them that, they will have no problem.
Let me say one thing.
Your final point, yeah.
You cannot have one single contractor be given a design job, be paid for it at his cost. Implementation, and that is construction of that, paid for it at its cost. Nobody else is bidding for this thing other than one single individual. And then you have him to collect the money, like what is happening in SGR. Collect the money, and nobody else is officiating that. And is giving you terms on how long that is going to be collected. That is not what we want to see. In addition to that, I want to say this as I conclude, which is very unfortunate. I'm really not happy that my brother is saying that's the best deal that happened to this country. I don't know where he lives, because we have issues that are open out there with SGR. Yes, and you know, they have comparison with what is happening in other nations and what is happening in this country. And you can see the cost, huge disparities. And we know we've lost money. On SGR, it was about, when Honorable Raila Odinga, I think they're the ones who signed this, it was about 256 billion. What happened when this new government came? 350 billion. What about the 100 billion that was there? And we know where that money went to. We don't want to hide that this is the best that has ever happened. His children will pay for it. Every child that is born in this country has a debt to the Chinese, not a genuine debt Some of those debts have gotten into individuals' pocket, unfortunately. This must be transparent. We cannot say that the Chinese are the only one who can design, they're the only one who can execute, they're the only one who have the surveyors who can do it, or they're the only ones who can be tax collectors and collect the money from SGR. Absolutely a nuisance, in my view. I think Kenyans must be involved in knowing what the Chinese are delivering in this country in terms of cost, so that they can compare. If somebody else is able to supply that thing at a cheaper rate, so be it, so that we can save money and not get into the kind of debt we're getting into. Otherwise, our cost is going to be auctioned if it's not too soon. And we cannot accept this agreement upon agreement and upon agreement and saying, oh, they're the ones that are coming to our aid.
Okay.
I can come to your aid and make sure that you'll not stand forever. Or I can come to your aid and just walk with you a little bit slower up to where you're supposed to go, however long it takes, but in a genuine way. I think this trade deal are hurting this country, and we cannot get into it before a new government comes in.
Double-edged sword.
No, SGR was for Uhuru Kenyatta a key lesson that how not to do a deal with China. And I think this country has actually learned, to the point whereby a president was even had to take a foot in mouth and say that I'm going to give a contract and withdraw it at the same time. We are well aware. What I have learned and I've actually appreciated of Uhuru Kenyatta post SGR and the whole calamity that it was with it, and the discussions that have happened between Xi Jinping and Uhuru Kenyatta about future trade deals with Kenya, is that never again will the country be exposed in the manner in which it was exposed ever before. And you can tell from the kind of new trade deals that are being done between China and Kenya that one, they go through a public procurement process. Every one of them goes through that, and CS Macharia can tell you, we always put bids, but always the bids for the Chinese are the least. And even if they variate, they do not even reach where the next guy was going to be.
Why is it not public?
Now,
if it's
it is public, and I want to tell you, Ndugu, if you go to the public, if you go online to the public procurement portal and you choose to look for even one kind, just type in China as a contractee, and you'll see most of the contract. So for me, I believe
that does not qualify the fact
our time is up.
The president said, I will give you this thing, and he
definitely we have to hold him to his words.
And it is now 4 years. I don't know whether you're standing in for him.
No, he's not posts. But I think now he knows never ever to touch China unless he has proof on the table.
Definitely, he did say that, and we're still waiting. By the way, thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. Asante sana. All's well that ends well. I was joined in studio right here by a well-able panel. Gwanda, it's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Salimia watu wa Ndhiwa. Of course, Mwakesi, asante sana for your time. Happy New Year. Say hi to your Taita Taveta residents.
People, thank you very much.
Asante sana. Let's take a short break right here on Morning Prime, 8 a.m. exactly. As we take that break, we come back with yet another interesting topic. Brian Aseli is taking a break this week, so we'll be talking about youth and leadership. Is there a way we can actually inculcate more of this youthful population that's the majority in the country to proactively engage in the political developments happening right now? Stay with us. We'll be back with that after the break.